From where are you watching this? Share your city in the comments. This is a historic moment, and we want to know from where the entire world is witnessing Jerusalem. The ancient stones of Jerusalem bear witness once more. They have seen empires rise and fall. They have endured wars and celebrations. Persians, Greeks, Romans, Ottomans all claimed these streets, yet none remain. Only Jerusalem endures, eternal and unchanging. Today, these stones stand as silent observers of prophecy unfolding before our eyes. The holy city stirs with an anticipation unlike anything in generations. Streets that once carried Roman chariots now fill with worshippers from every nation under heaven. The narrow pathways of the old city strain to contain the masses. The human tide flows like rivers toward sacred ground. Some travelers journeyed for days across continents, others for weeks across oceans, all drawn by an ancient calling that transcends time and culture, resonating in the deepest chambers of their souls. The air in Jerusalem feels different today, thicker, heavier, charged with expectation and spiritual electricity. Locals who have witnessed countless holy days say they haven't seen crowds this size in living memory. Perhaps not since ancient times has such a gathering assembled on this sacred hill. Hotels throughout the city declared full occupancy months ago. Private homes open their doors to strangers who arrive as pilgrims. Israelis welcome foreigners as brothers and sisters, united by recognition of this moment's significance. The Western Wall Plaza, expanded to its maximum capacity, still cannot contain all who gather in reverent anticipation. Temporary structures rise across available spaces. Authorities struggle to manage the influx while maintaining sacred dignity. Security tightens across the old city with extraordinary measures. Yet this heightened vigilance springs not from fear, but from reverence. This is recognition that something profound approaches, something that transcends ordinary understanding. The Day of Atonement, Yom Kippur, the holiest day in the Jewish calendar, now intersects with prophecies thousands of years in waiting. Observers from diverse faiths sense the convergence with uncanny clarity. Christians recognize patterns described in their New Testament. Muslims acknowledge the specialness of these days. Secular observers find themselves inexplicably drawn to witness. Something ancient awakens in Jerusalem today. Something foretold approaches with unstoppable momentum. The world watches Jerusalem with bated breath, knowing instinctively that what happens here will echo across nations. The call resonates across continents with unprecedented clarity. This is not merely a religious observance. This is a cosmic appointment set before the foundation of the world. What happens in Jerusalem today echoes not just across geography, but across eternity itself. The appointed time, mentioned in ancient scrolls preserved through millennia of persecution and exile, arrives precisely as foretold by prophets who soar across time. Leviticus names it with reverent precision, the 10th day of the 7th month. Prophets anticipated it through visions and dreams. Generation after generation preserved its significance through exile in Babylon, dispersion across the Roman Empire, persecution in medieval Europe, and the unthinkable horrors of the 20th century. Yet the day remained. The observance continued, the appointment kept by a people who refused to forget. This gathering transcends ordinary religious assembly. The rabbis who serve at Jerusalem's sacred sites speak with unusual urgency in recent weeks. Their voices, trained in the measured tones of scholarly discussion, now carry a weight that extends beyond tradition. This year is different, they whisper in private conversations that somehow reach public awareness. This year aligns with patterns we have studied our entire lives. Their eyes reflect knowledge passed down through generations, from teacher to student in unbroken succession since ancient days. Preparations intensify across the city with exceptional diligence. White garments appear everywhere in markets and homes, symbols of purity before the Almighty, symbols of readiness for divine encounter. Families gather in unprecedented numbers to reconcile old grievances before sunset. Ancient wisdom declares no one should enter this sacred day carrying resentment or unforgiven offense. The purification begins days earlier than tradition requires. The spiritual preparation extends beyond customary boundaries. The shofars are prepared with extraordinary care throughout the city, each ram's horn cleaned with reverence, each handled as the sacred instrument it truly is, each unique in its voice, yet harmonious in purpose, each destined to pierce the veil between worlds with its primordial cry. Those who understand the signs, who have dedicated lives to studying prophetic patterns, recognize something unprecedented approaches Jerusalem. The city stands at the threshold of destiny. The cosmic calendar aligns with mathematical precision. Heavenly bodies move in exactly the order described by ancient seers. The convergence of celestial signs, political developments, technological capabilities, and spiritual awakening matches prophetic writings with uncanny accuracy. Just as the prophets described thousands of years ago, speaking of days they could glimpse but not experience until now. Scripture comes alive today with breathtaking immediacy. The ancient texts transform from historical artifacts to living reality before our eyes. Words preserved on parchment and paper now walk among us in flesh and spirit. Prophecy fulfills itself with precision that defies coincidence or manipulation. Zechariah wrote of this day with startling specificity, a day when all eyes turn toward Jerusalem. Ezekiel foresaw these very gatherings in vision, describing multitudes assembling from the north and south, east and west. Isaiah spoke with poetic beauty of nations streaming to this mountain as rivers flow to the sea. Exactly as we witness now in real time, unfolding before a watching world. The prophetic timeline accelerates beyond scholarly prediction. Events foretold to occur across decades now compress into months, weeks, days. Patterns hidden in ancient texts emerge with unmistakable clarity for those with eyes to see and ears to hear. Scholars who dedicated entire lifetimes to understanding prophetic literature now stand amazed as theory transforms into observable reality. Academic debates dissolve in the face of manifestation. The sacred texts describe this convergence with remarkable precision that no human author could orchestrate. The alignment of celestial, political, technological, and spiritual factors cannot be dismissed as coincidence. The mathematical probability against such convergence defies calculation. Too specific, too exact, too precisely aligned with writings preserved for thousands of years. The Day of Atonement this year falls precisely when celestial signs appear in patterns not seen for millennia. The same signs mentioned in the prophet Joel as harbingers. The same patterns described in Revelation as heralds. The same configuration noted by Daniel in his mysterious timeline. Jewish scholars who never accepted Christian interpretations now find themselves reaching identical conclusions about timing. Christian researchers who never studied rabbinic tradition discover complementary insights that complete the prophetic picture. Muslim observers note correlations with their own prophetic traditions. All three faiths, often divided by interpretation, find remarkable agreement about the significance of this particular moment. This convergence of understanding itself fulfills ancient words about sealed books finally opened at the appointed time. All agree, with unprecedented unity of perspective, that this moment stands apart from history in significance. This moment transcends ordinary time. This moment fulfills what was written by hands long stilled by death, yet whose words live with greater power today than when first penned. The ancient covenant, preserved against all odds through centuries of opposition, manifests in our time with undeniable clarity. We don't merely commemorate history today in Jerusalem. We participate in prophecy as both witnesses and fulfillment. We don't just remember the past. We witness the future unfolding before our eyes. We stand at the intersection of all times, where what was written becomes what is, and what will be reveals itself in embryonic form. It happens now, not tomorrow, not in some distant future relegated to theoretical discussion. The fulfillment occurs in real time, as you watch this unfolding documentation, as you listen to this narration, as you witness through technology what previous generations could only imagine. History pivots in Jerusalem today with cosmic significance. The hinge of ages turns on this sacred moment. Witnesses position themselves throughout the city to capture every significant moment. Phones raised to record, professional cameras rolling without interruption. International documentary teams position themselves at strategic locations across Jerusalem. They sense the historic weight transcends normal reporting assignments. This isn't merely news to be forgotten with tomorrow's headlines. This is prophecy documenting itself through human instruments. This is eternal significance manifesting in temporal reality. The Western Wall, that ancient remnant of temple foundations, receives more prayers today than any day in recorded history. The intensity of spiritual hunger palpable to even casual observers. The collective spiritual energy unprecedented in modern experience. Orthodox Jews sway in fervent prayer, their bodies physical expressions of souls reaching toward heaven. Christians kneel in reverent silence nearby, their heads bowed in recognition. Muslims observe from respectful distance, acknowledging the sacredness of the moment, even across theological difference. Something remarkable emerges among historical rivals in this sacred space, a mysterious unity transcending centuries of division. Barriers that seemed permanent suddenly appear temporary. Differences that sparked conflicts now seem secondary to shared recognition of divine activity. Something greater than religious division manifests in Jerusalem today. The atmosphere shifts with palpable intensity as hours pass. Those sensitive to spiritual realities describe waves of presence sweeping through the city like wind through wheat fields. Can you feel it? Pilgrims ask one another in dozens of languages. They need no translation for the question, nor confirmation of the answer. Their tears provide silent testimony. Their trembling hands reveal what words in any tongue cannot adequately express. Jerusalem transforms before our eyes. Not physically, though construction never ceases in the modern city, but spiritually, in the realm beyond physical perception, yet no less real. Visions and dreams reported across the city match ancient descriptions with astonishing consistency. People who never met, from cultures that never intersected, share identical spiritual experiences that correlate with prophetic texts. The veil between worlds grows thin in Jerusalem today. The boundary between seen and unseen fades like morning mist under rising sun. What was hidden becomes visible to spiritual perception. What was distant draws near with intimate presence. The people come with expectant hearts that beat with anticipation, centuries in the making. Families travel together across continents, 3 and 4 generations united in pilgrimage. Elderly believers fulfill lifelong dreams to be present for this moment. Some arriving in wheelchairs, determined to witness with their own eyes before departing this life. Young seekers drawn by spiritual hunger, they themselves don't fully understand, discover ancient truths becoming present reality in real time. Their voices blend in prayers older than nations, words preserved through millennia now finding expression through modern lips. Languages from every continent rise toward heaven in supernatural harmony. Hebrew and Arabic, English and Mandarin, Spanish and Russian, Swahili and Hindi, the confusion of Babel yields to mysterious unity. Weeping mixes with celebration in sacred paradox. Solemnity intertwines with joy in divine contradiction. The complexity of human emotion finds perfect expression here where heaven touches earth. Korean believers stand shoulder to shoulder with Brazilian pilgrims, sharing no common tongue, yet communicating through eyes filled with identical recognition. Nigerian worshippers embrace Argentine families as long-lost relatives. Geography dissolves in Jerusalem today. National boundaries fade in significance. The nations gather just as the prophets foresaw, not in conflict, but in convergence around sacred purpose. Personal testimonies flood social media platforms in dozens of languages, yet expressing identical themes. I had to be here. Something called me across oceans. I didn't understand why until now. I sold everything to make this journey. Strangers become family in these sacred hours. Ancient feuds dissolve in the presence of something greater than human division. Those who arrived as curious tourists transform into engaged participants. Those who came to observe discover themselves becoming witnesses to history's most significant transition. Every hotel room was claimed months in advance. Price is no obstacle to those who recognize the moment's importance. Every rental space filled beyond capacity. Temporary accommodations appear in unlikely locations. People sleep in doorways and on rooftops just to remain close to the epicenter of spiritual activity. The magnetic pull of this moment proves irresistible across demographic boundaries. Jerusalem breathes with the collective heartbeat of humanity. The city itself seems alive, conscious, aware of its role as nexus between worlds. Ancient stones resonate with frequencies beyond audible range, yet sensed by spirit. Modern buildings constructed with no religious purpose become temporary temples as divine presence fills available space. The very air vibrates with expectation. The light itself seems different, clearer, more golden, revealing details normally hidden from perception. Time behaves strangely in Jerusalem today. Minutes expand into timeless moments. Hours compress into instants of eternal significance. Those present lose track of normal chronology, experiencing time according to spiritual rather than mechanical measurement. The shofar sounds, ancient and powerful beyond description. Its voice transcends time with authority that silences all human noise. The first blast startles even those expecting it, cutting through preparations with primordial power. The sound penetrates deeper than physical hearing. It resonates in the soul with frequencies that activate spiritual DNA. It awakens something primal within human consciousness, something eternal that transcends cultural conditioning. The ram's horn calls as it did on Sinai amid thunder and lightning. As it did when ancient kings were coronated in sacred ceremony, as it will when prophecy completes its course at time's culmination. Professional shofar blowers, trained through decades of dedicated practice, prepared for this day through intense spiritual and physical discipline. Their lungs strengthened through months of rigorous preparation. Their technique refined through generations of practice passed from master to student. Yet something extraordinary occurs when lips meet instrument today. The longest blast continues beyond natural human capacity. Witnesses check their watches in amazement, then check again in disbelief. Human lungs cannot sustain such notes without interruption. Physical limitations should prevent such continuation, yet the sound extends beyond physiological possibility. It echoes off ancient walls with increasing rather than diminishing power. It reverberates through narrow streets, penetrating stone and mortar with unhindered force. It enters closed doors and sealed rooms as if physical barriers present no obstacle to its spiritual authority. No one in Jerusalem remains untouched by its voice. Not the most determined skeptic, not the most casual tourist, not the most hardened critic. The sound carries meaning beyond words in any language. It announces divine visitation with unmistakable clarity. It declares transition between ages with authority no human voice could command. It awakens spiritual perception dormant in human consciousness. It transforms ordinary awareness into prophetic recognition. Those who understand the deeper prophetic significance weep openly without embarrassment. This sound heralds cosmic transition beyond political change or religious revival. This note marks divine timing orchestrated before creation's foundation. This call separates history into before and after with finality that rewrites human understanding. The Shofar speaks what theological treatises and scholarly tomes cannot adequately express. It translates the ineffable into sound that bypasses intellectual analysis and directly accesses spiritual comprehension. It gives voice to the cosmic moment when eternal purpose intersects temporal reality with transformative power. Even recording devices struggle to capture the fullness of this sound. Audio engineers report phenomena they cannot explain. The frequency extends beyond normal range. The vibration affects electronic equipment in ways that defy technical explanation. What registers on instruments doesn't match what witnesses experience, as if the sound exists in multiple dimensions simultaneously, only partially accessible to technological measurement. Those present understand they experience something that can be witnessed but never fully communicated to those absent. This itself fulfills ancient writings about a moment that must be experienced rather than merely described. We stand where Abraham prepared his sacrifice in ancient obedience, establishing spiritual patterns that echo across millennia. Where David established his kingdom after conquest, creating physical foundation for spiritual capital. Where Solomon built the first temple according to divine pattern, creating intersection between heaven and earth. Where prophets proclaimed divine perspective with courageous clarity despite persecution. Where Jesus walked in physical manifestation of divine presence. This ground holds memory beyond intellectual understanding. The stones themselves contain history and molecular structure. Archaeological layer upon layer of civilization built upon faith that refused to yield to opposition. Jerusalem remembers what humanity forgets in its constant rush toward novelty. The continuity stretches unbroken through millennia of human experience. Ancient festivals observed without interruption, despite exile and persecution that would have erased lesser commemorations. The same prayers spoken generation after generation in precise Hebrew preservation. The same hope maintained through darkest periods when fulfillment seemed impossible to human reasoning. Today connects directly to Sinai through unbroken spiritual lineage. Today links to the first temple through physical remnants still visible beneath modern structures. Today binds to every previous day of atonement observed since divine institution. Yet something distinctive emerges in our time that sets this observance apart. Something unprecedented even within this ancient tradition that has seen thousands of annual commemorations. The particular alignment of prophetic elements never occurred before in recorded history. Not with this precise configuration of signs in heaven and earth, not with these exact political arrangements among nations, not with this specific technological capability enabling global witness, not with this unique spiritual awakening across traditional boundaries. Rabbis who devoted decades to ancient texts consult manuscripts with trembling hands and wide eyes. They confirm what many sense intuitively through spiritual perception. The pattern completes itself today, after millennia of partial fulfillment. The circle closes in divine precision. What began thousands of years ago reaches culmination in our lifetime, in our presence, through our witness. Those whose ancestors preserved these traditions through centuries of hardship, often paying with blood for their faithfulness, now witness the purpose behind their persistence. Their commitment created this continuity. Their sacrifice maintained the unbroken chain of observance that allows this moment's recognition. Without their faithfulness, we would lack context to understand what unfolds before us. Without their preservation of ancient wisdom, we would miss the significance of patterns now completing themselves in perfect divine timing. Those present recognize themselves as beneficiaries of costly faithfulness maintained against overwhelming opposition. This itself represents miracle beyond rational explanation, that the most persecuted people in human history preserved the most detailed spiritual tradition despite every effort to erase both people and practice. The very existence of this observance defies historical probability and testifies to supernatural preservation. The spiritual impact extends beyond religious boundaries with unexpected power. Even secular observers feel its weight, despite intellectual frameworks that reject supernatural causation. Journalists who arrived with professional detachment find themselves affected by immersive experience that transcends objective reporting. "Something happened to me there," they confess privately to colleagues, searching for explanatory frameworks that fail to contain the experience. The atmosphere alters consciousness in measurable ways. It shifts perception beyond psychological explanation. It transforms understanding of reality itself. Hardened critics who built careers on skepticism find their cynicism melting away in Jerusalem's present reality. Intellectual barriers, constructed over decades, dissolve in moments of undeniable encounter. The sacred pierces the ordinary with authority that cannot be dismissed through rationalization. The eternal interrupts the temporal with evidence that demands verdict. Medical teams positioned throughout the city to address physical needs of massive crowds report inexplicable phenomena occurring with increasing frequency. Spontaneous healings documented with medical verification. Unexplainable recoveries witnessed by trained professionals. Conditions diagnosed as permanent, suddenly reversed without intervention. Scientific instruments deployed by research teams detect anomalies that exceed baseline measurements. Energy patterns shift across the city in ways that correlate with subjective spiritual experiences. Monitoring stations record fluctuations that defy explanation within current scientific paradigms. Those with prophetic sensitivity, individuals known for accurate spiritual perception rather than religious fanaticism, describe layers of reality becoming visible that normally remain hidden from human awareness. The veil thins, they explain, acknowledging the inadequacy of language to capture multidimensional experience. Words strain and fail to capture the fullness of this moment. Human vocabulary lacks precision for cosmic intersections. Language itself reveals its limitations when attempting to describe transcendent reality. Yet everyone present feels it regardless of spiritual background or perceptual training. The tangible weight of glory that presses upon physical senses. The substantial presence of transcendent reality intersecting material existence. What was written in ancient texts becomes directly experienced in present consciousness. What was promised through prophetic declaration manifests as immediate reality. Faith transforms into sight with undeniable clarity. Hope materializes into presence that cannot be dismissed. Jerusalem becomes the nexus where heaven touches earth with transformative power. The thin place where eternal reality becomes accessible to temporal perception. Those present recognize with increasing clarity their privilege as witnesses to divine timing. They stand as observers, not merely to an event, but to a transition between ages that future generations will mark as pivotal. History itself divides at this moment into before and after with cosmic significance. Chronology finds its ultimate meaning in this convergence of prophetic fulfillment. Those without spiritual framework struggle to articulate their experience, yet cannot deny its reality. Those with religious understanding find even their comprehensive theological systems inadequate to fully explain what manifests before them. Something greater than human comprehension unfolds in Jerusalem today. Something that transcends existing explanatory frameworks and demands new language, new understanding, new categories of perception. The signs multiply for those with eyes to see and hearts to perceive. Prophetic patterns emerge with unmistakable clarity that even skeptics struggle to dismiss. This convergence was described millennia ago with remarkable precision that defies coincidence or manipulation. The celestial alignment visible in night skies precisely matches ancient descriptions preserved for thousands of years. The political configurations among nations correlate exactly with prophetic scenarios once dismissed as impossible. The technological capabilities enabling global witness fulfill ancient predictions about all eyes seeing simultaneously. The spiritual awakening crossing traditional boundaries manifests exactly as foretold by prophets who saw our day but didn't experience its reality. All foretold through inspiration that transcended human limitation, all manifesting now with precision that testifies to divine orchestration. Time compresses in Jerusalem today in ways that defy normal perception. Past, present, and future exist simultaneously in this sacred space as chronology yields to eternal perspective. Observers report experiencing moments of temporal distortion that transcend psychological explanation. I saw it as it was in ancient days. I saw it as it exists now. I saw it as it will become. All simultaneously, one pilgrim struggles to explain to companions who nod in understanding, having experienced similar phenomena. Scientists who arrive to document measurable phenomena find themselves documenting experiences that challenge foundational assumptions about reality's nature. Patterns in nature confirm ancient writings with mathematical precision that defies coincidental explanation. Weather systems behave precisely as prophesied for this day, creating conditions described thousands of years ago for this specific observance. Statistical impossibilities become observable reality before qualified witnesses trained in objective documentation. The mathematical probability against such convergence defies calculation by most sophisticated computational models. The variables involved in such precise alignment exceed random causation by factors that point undeniably toward orchestration. Yet it happens before our eyes with undeniable reality. Skeptics who demanded empirical signs as condition for belief now stand silent before their manifestation in undeniable form. The evidence overwhelms objection with irrefutable presence. Reality supersedes doubt with experiential certainty. Even secular media outlets, initially reluctant to acknowledge spiritual dimensions, find themselves searching for adequate terminology to describe what unfolds. Unprecedented appears in headlines with increasing frequency. Historic seems inadequate to capture significance. Remarkable fails to convey cosmic importance. Their professional vocabulary reaches for adequate description and falls demonstrably short of capturing reality. Editorial policies against religious language yield to phenomenological necessity. What occurs transcends journalistic categories with authority that demands new frameworks of understanding. This isn't merely news to be reported, analyzed, and forgotten. This is fulcrum upon which history balances and turns. This is hinge connecting ages in divine chronology. This is threshold between what was and what will be in cosmic progression. This moment signifies transition, not conclusion, in the divine narrative unfolding through human history. The prophetic timeline continues beyond today's convergence with predetermined precision. What begins here in Jerusalem unfolds across coming days and years, according to patterns established before creation. The Day of Atonement opens a door that will not close by human decision or intervention, initiates a process that will not reverse despite opposition or manipulation. The ancient writings describe what follows with detailed precision that will become increasingly apparent as fulfillment continues its unstoppable progression. Each stage approaches with inexorable certainty that no earthly power can prevent or redirect. Those who understand the larger prophetic pattern recognize this as magnificent beginning, not dramatic ending to human story. This represents commencement rather than conclusion, inauguration rather than termination. Hope characterizes this transition with life-giving promise, not fear with its paralysis. Divine purpose defines this shift with intentional progress, not chaos with its meaningless disorder. The redemptive thread running through human history, often obscured by tragedy and darkness, now reveals its pattern with unmistakable clarity that illuminates both past and future. The tapestry comes into focus after generations glimpsed only isolated threads without comprehending the masterpiece in creation. Jerusalem stands at the center of this divine narrative by sovereign appointment, not by human decision or political arrangement, but by divine designation established before nations existed. The city's significance transcends politics or religion, with authority derived from divine choice rather than human preference. It occupies cosmic geography with significance beyond strategic location or resource availability. Spiritual coordinates of eternal significance established by Creator's determination. What initiates here ripples outward in concentric circles of influence. Spiritual shockwaves that transform everything they touch. Redemptive impact spreading globally according to divine timetable rather than human expectation. The prophets describe this sequence with remarkable accuracy that becomes increasingly apparent as fulfillment progresses. First, Jerusalem as epicenter of divine activity. Then Judea as immediate sphere of influence. Then Samaria despite historic division and animosity. Then the uttermost parts of earth in global transformation. The pattern repeats with cosmic precision that testifies to divine authorship. The shofar that sounds in Jerusalem will echo across continents and oceans, reaching every nation with its declaration. The light that dawns here will illuminate darkest corners of human experience with hope that dispels despair. What begins in prophetic fulfillment continues in redemptive purpose until completion according to divine timetable. Jerusalem's current significance points toward greater fulfillment yet to come in progressive revelation of eternal purpose. Those who witness today's convergence participate in initial stages of comprehensive transformation that unfolds according to perfect wisdom and sovereign timing. The global audience grows hourly beyond any media event in human history. Live streams reach unprecedented viewership across platforms, breaking technical limitations and requiring emergency server expansion. Social media networks strain under engagement volume that exceeds design capacity, creating delays and outages. Despite technological redundancy, people worldwide sense mysterious connection to these events regardless of religious background or spiritual tradition. Something primal within human consciousness recognizes significance transcending intellectual explanation or cultural conditioning. Translation services struggle to keep pace with exponential demand growth. Every language group on Earth seeks access to this moment with urgent intensity. Automated systems fail under volume pressure, requiring human translators to work continuously. World leaders request diplomatic briefings with unusual urgency, temporarily setting aside political conflicts in recognition of greater significance. Religious authorities across traditions convene emergency consultations to compare prophetic understandings and interpretative frameworks. Financial markets respond to the spiritual shift with volatility reflecting uncertainty about implications for economic systems built on materialistic assumptions. The secular and sacred intersect in unexpected ways that challenge artificial separation maintained in modern thought. Nations historically indifferent to Jerusalem's significance now turn collective attention to the ancient city with newfound recognition. Embassies receive instruction to monitor developments with highest priority, reporting directly to executive leadership rather than through normal diplomatic channels. Intelligence agencies redirect resources toward understanding these phenomena, finding traditional analysis frameworks inadequate for spiritual dimensions beyond material causation. What happens in Jerusalem refuses to remain geographically contained by political boundaries or cultural limitations. It expands with unstoppable momentum. It influences global consciousness beyond explanatory models. It transforms fundamental assumptions about reality's nature and historical progression. Media outlets initially hesitant to cover religious events now dedicate continuous coverage as undeniable phenomena demand journalistic attention. The empirical evidence visible even through digital transmission compels acknowledgement from most determined skeptics. The tangible manifestations documented through multiple independent sources demand intellectual honesty from objective observers. Even those who cannot explain what happens within existing paradigms recognize its historical importance with unprecedented unanimity across ideological spectrum. Technology designed primarily for entertainment and commerce now serves as prophetic witness to divine activity. Satellites circling Earth provide continuous documentation of what prophets foretold millennia ago, with perspective impossible before modern era. The world does not just passively watch events unfold in detached observation. The world participates through witnessing with recognition that observation itself constitutes engagement with cosmic moment. To see is to participate in this divine human intersection. To witness is to be transformed by recognition of larger reality normally hidden from perception. Those watching from distant locations report inexplicable phenomena occurring globally in apparent response to Jerusalem events. As if physical distance proves no barrier to spiritual impact radiating from prophetic epicenter, the boundaries between observer and participant dissolve in this moment of cosmic significance. All who witness become part of the prophetic fulfillment by their very awareness, fulfilling ancient words about all nations streaming to Jerusalem, some physically present, others spiritually connected through technology, unimaginable to ancient prophets, yet included in their expansive vision. The story continues beyond our sight, with implications extending into dimensions currently inaccessible to human perception. What begins visibly in physical Jerusalem extends invisibly across spiritual realms, with consequences beyond current comprehension. The prophetic implications unfold across dimensions with divine purpose that connects seen and unseen aspects of created reality. This Day of Atonement marks not conclusion, but initiation of divine activity long foretold, but now manifesting in observable reality. The Shofar announces transition between ages with authority that transcends human resistance or redirection. Jerusalem fulfills its destiny as prophetic epicenter of divine activity in human history. The cosmic calendar advances precisely as foretold by ancient seers who glimpsed our moment through divinely granted perception. We witness the hinge of history turning with irreversible momentum. We observe the threshold between epochs crossed with cosmic significance. The prophets who described these days with startling precision could see across time through spiritual perception, transcending physical limitation. Their vision materializes before our eyes in undeniable fulfillment that testifies to divine inspiration. Their words transform from predictive declaration to present description with seamless transition. What was written in ancient manuscripts becomes what is witnessed in present experience. Those physically present in Jerusalem today carry unique responsibility as first-hand witnesses to pivotal transition. What they observe must be preserved with meticulous accuracy for future generations. What they experience must be shared with faithful transmission that maintains integrity without embellishment. The documentation of these moments serves future generations who will build understanding upon this witnessed foundation. This testimony anchors hope in observable reality rather than speculative imagination. The prophetic thread continues unwinding according to divine pattern with perfect precision. Each event connects to subsequent developments with divine orchestration evident to discerning observers. Nothing occurs randomly in this unfolding drama. Nothing unfolds by chance or coincidence. The pattern reveals meticulous design that testifies to perfect wisdom, directing human history toward predetermined culmination. Purpose guides every development with intentionality that transforms apparent chaos into recognizable order. Jerusalem stands not at the end, but at the beginning of culmination. The Day of Atonement opens what human effort cannot close despite opposition, initiates what human resistance cannot reverse despite determined effort, establishes what human power cannot remove despite combined opposition. The ancient city reveals its ultimate purpose as connection point between heaven and earth. The eternal story continues unfolding toward completion with divine precision. We witness with profound privilege. We testify with solemn responsibility. We participate in prophecy fulfilled and still unfolding toward cosmic completion that redeems all creation according to divine purpose established before time began and extending beyond temporal limitation into eternal significance.